Justice, forgiveness, revenge. Every picture tells a story. Not everything is in black and white. Today I am asking for your help. Let's pretend that I am standing on a TEDx stage in front of 350 people. I have a blank canvas. I ask the audience to call out 3 colors for a sky. I then take a color from each of the 3 sections. The crowd is very energetic and eager to participate. After all, it's your typical TED crowd. My talk turns serious as I speak to the crowd to my left. I ask them, what if you were told that this court sentences all of you to 20 to life? Then I speak to the crowd directly in front of me. I ask, what if this section, all of you were told that this court sentences you to life without parole? Then I turn to the crowd to my right. I ask, what if you were told that this court sentences each and every one of you to death? I bet some of you wish that you had taken a different seat, but you all need to know this. All 3 sentences are death sentences. All 3. You might wonder what 20 to life actually means. According to law in this state, you serve your 20 years, you are then eligible for release consideration. It is not an early release, it is your sentence. Sometimes the newspapers report that you are getting out early. You are not. You would hope that within those 20 years that you try to rehabilitate yourself, fix the things that are broken inside yourself. You hope that when you see the parole board that they will focus on the person you have become. Every one of us here knows that we can't change the person we once were. We can't change the past. We can, however, change our todays and our tomorrows. Some might wonder, what does a person do for 20 years behind bars? Looking at me, I'm sure a lot of you are speculating that I work out. I don't. High-ranking sources tend to paint a far different picture. They like to throw out labels. One that comes to my mind is worst of the worst. Have you heard that label? I'm sure you have. Is it possible for a person to be a worst of the worst while being one of the most trusted prisoners in the state of Ohio? All of you are stakeholders. You are the public. Today, let's see what you think. Exhibit A. 37 years ago, I was convicted of 2 counts of aggravated murder. I had no prior incarceration, no juvenile record. I went to Lucasville, the state's only maximum security prison at the time. There, I stayed for 12 years and held jobs that few ever enter into. Sensitive jobs you never hear about. Would you believe there is a jail inside a prison? There is. It's called the Hole. There's also an internal court system called RIB. This stands for Rules Infraction Board. Here, bad conduct is dealt with on various levels. It is manned by a 3-judge panel. I was one of 2 men responsible for the clerical duties. A high degree of trust was required because I had access to confidential information, confiscated drugs, contraband, and weapons. I stayed on that job for 2 years. Then I switched over to ID department. This job, I made ID badges for inmates, for staff, and correctional officers. I even took fingerprints and mugshots of all of them. I developed film and mixed chemicals in an actual darkroom. Would you believe I was the first prisoner many employees encountered their first day on the job? Imagine, a prisoner fingerprinting correctional officers. I am pretty sure that doesn't happen these days. I soon became special incident photographer on 24-hour call. Now when you think of photographer, you probably envision weddings, parties, or even shooting a TEDx event. What I saw through my lens was much, much different. Anytime there was a suicide, escape, assault, killing, or even the arrest of a visitor for conveying drugs or contraband into the institution, my job was to report to the scene and photograph everything. Naturally, trust was a big issue. In time, I became a clerk for inmate personnel. This job, I dealt with bed moves, payroll, jobs, counts, merit status placement, and a variety of other things. It was basically the heart of the prison operation. These days, they call it the count office. Inmates don't work there. This may come as a shock to each and every one of you, but sometime in 1980, I was busted with 2 joints of marijuana. Yes, it's true. Not long after that, I was busted with some shoe shop glue and garlic. Yes, 2 whole cloves of garlic to be exact. What was I thinking? I'm not even Italian. I was punished by RIB for all 3 violations. How would I know that 35 years later, those violations would come back to haunt me? My security level dropped to close and I transferred to Mansfield Correctional. There I kept doing the same jobs in the count office, the deputy's building, and into my 12th year behind bars, I created what is now known as domino deeds. Some of you have probably heard of it. What happens is basically I paint constantly. I give paintings away to people for free, and I ask that they do something simple, some act of kindness towards someone else. That creates a domino effect. Today, over 4,000 individuals and or charities have been empowered to share that kindness. To learn more, you can check it out on Facebook, click onto Domino Deeds, or you can go to YouTube and check on Jim Fussell, TEDx Marion Correctional. In 1995, my security level dropped again, and I transferred to Ross Correctional. There I continued my sensitive jobs. I went through Kairos, an intense 3-day religious retreat. Through Kairos, I was expected to forgive myself as well as to forgive others. In 1998, I went in front of the parole board for the first time. Remember now, I was sentenced to 20 to life. At that point, I had served 20 full years. While I was waiting to see the parole board, I kept noticing guys being led into the parole board room in handcuffs, obviously straight from the hole. Apparently, they had broken a rule or two. They would come back out of the room a few minutes later with a parole. At that stage of my life, I hadn't had any violations in many, many years, so I thought that my chances were pretty good. That hour-long hearing was difficult. They discussed my crime, naturally, and they brought up the pot, the glue, and the garlic from the years before. The parole board, at the conclusion of that 1 hour, they told me that they were giving me a 10-year continuance based on the serious nature of the offense. The judge had sentenced me to 20 to life. Now my sentence has changed to 30 to life. This was made even more difficult due to the fact not one, but both of my parents passed away within months. Naturally, I was devastated. But I did what I do, and I reached out to the public by painting, giving more paintings away to charities and individuals. Before long, I had paintings in Pakistan, Canada, Australia, London, England, and many states in the U.S. A mural of mine even hung over the entrance of a convention center in Little Rock, Arkansas. There, 40,000 people attended this convention. I'm told that little old ladies just stood and wept as they looked at my art. I don't know that it was that bad, but they wept. I had moved on, more prisons, similar jobs. I trained pilot dogs, and I even created several programs. I transferred to a prison medical center in Columbus for 5 years. There, I taught painting classes to male and female patients. I saw a need, so I became a Stephen minister. This enabled me to be a caregiver to many of the patients there. A lot of the patients were in hospice rooms. I was able to spend countless hours with each and every one of them, stay by their side until they took that final breath. In my opinion, no one should die alone, no matter what their crime. At some point in all of our lives, we were loved and we mattered to someone. In 2008, I saw the parole board again. This time, I had completed the continuance where the board had given me the previous time. I hadn't had any rule violations over 27 years. During that hour-long parole hearing, they discussed my crime, naturally, and they brought up the pot, the glue, and the garlic. They told me that they would send the results in the mail. 74 very long days later, the results came. They gave me a 5-year continuance based on the serious nature of the offense, the thing that never changes. In 2011, I transferred to Hocking Correctional, a small prison in southern Ohio designed for older offenders. It sits right next to Wayne National Forest. It's a beautiful area. Unfortunately, soon after my arrival, I find out that a guy is there who had testified against me during my trial 30 years earlier. In 1978, apparently he had requested a separation from me, but during that 30-year span, he had been in and out of prison so many times, he simply fell through the cracks. Thanks to my teachings from Kairos and becoming a Stephen minister, I decided to forgive him. It was a tough call. Obviously, he doubted my sincerity because within hours, I was surrounded by guards and staff. I was chained and cuffed. I looked like Hannibal Lecter. They took me to a strange-looking cell. The bed had 6 seat belts. The front of the cell had plexiglass, and the walls were soft. As I stand there naked, I'm comprehending that I'm actually in a rubber room. I can only wonder, can things get any worse? Just then I hear knocking. A voice says, "Sir, sir, we will need your clothes." So this is what forgiveness brings. I spent 30 days in the rubber room. Then I transferred here to Marion Correctional. I soon took up my painting activities and observed the things available here. There were many. I couldn't help but notice the world's first TEDx in prison. It caught my eye, and before long, I was hooked. Well, in 2013, shortly after taking the stage, I saw the parole board again. At that point, I had served 35 years, had been violation-free for 30 years. I was minimum security, That's as low as you can go security-wise. I went in front of the parole board. They talked about my case in detail, but their attitude seemed a lot different this time. They actually commended me for my community service outreach, and they said I seemed sincere. They even mentioned a painting of mine that hangs on the general's wall in the Pentagon. But, like I said, they talked about my case, and they brought up the pot, the glue, and the garlic. The punishment never ends. Then at the conclusion of that hearing, they issued me yet another 5-year continuance based on the serious nature of the offense. So much for a 5-year plan. At that point during that hearing, I had been drug-free for over 27 years, but the day of my crime was far different. Responsible for my actions? Definitely. Understanding those actions? Not so much. Apparently 2 cloves of garlic in the early 80s made me a danger to society and elevated me to the worst of the worst because on Christmas Eve 2013, Santa didn't bring me anything nice. He brought me that 5-year continuance. Most people in similar situations have given up. Hopelessness has taken over their lives. Even their families and friends have lost hope. They have committed no crime, yet they serve the sentence right beside each and every one of us. Even when they visit, sometimes they are treated like second-class citizens. This affects thousands of men and women behind bars across this state. When we are sentenced to 15 or 20 years to life, none of us have a crystal ball to know that when we do see the parole board, that they just might ignore the 15 or 20-year number, that instead they will focus more on the life end. All of you are stakeholders. You are the public. The parole board has been quoted as saying that you, the public, demand that they keep us lifers locked away. I seriously have my doubts that they are speaking for you. You can argue that if a person takes a life, they deserve to die in prison. Now, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, but I'm pretty sure that's why judges and juries can decide life without parole or death. On the flip side, if you are serving 15 or 20 years to life and you rehabilitate yourself, doesn't it make sense that in that situation, that person deserves a second chance? The prison director and governor of this state have all been quoted that they believe in second chances. Perhaps we need them to elaborate. Me personally, I can't help but wonder, when does the justice sentence end and the revenge sentence begin? When I first completed my 20 years behind bars and saw the parole board for the first time, did I then begin the revenge sentence? The past 17 years, have I been serving a revenge sentence? Does this affect countless others around this state? Is there any way to overcome the revenge factor, if it indeed exists? You can do years of good deeds and no one remembers. You can do one bad deed in your life and no one forgets. You can change. You can educate yourself. You can try to overcome all of your flaws to no avail. Over 7,000 men and women behind bars around this state are in a similar situation. There are those in society who believe that people like me, our stories should never be told. To those individuals, I would love to share some insight about something they just might not know. Over the years, I have been contacted by mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and friends of total strangers, begging me to protect and look after their loved ones who now find themselves entering the prison system. Many other men I know have had similar experiences. In this state, the Office of Victim Services has their office right beside the parole board. These are paid salary positions, just like the parole board members, and their job is to object automatically against parole of anyone serving a life sentence. It is mind-boggling that a small group of office staff can sit and rubber stamp objections, erase any hope of freedom for those of us that they know nothing about. How can one state agency object and hold power over another state agency, both on salary from the state? God forbid if one of their loved ones or friends enter the prison system. Will they then turn to us and beg for our help to protect their loved one? It has happened in the past, and yes, we always put our lives on the line to protect. Why? Because we are the bigger person. We don't hold grudges. We try to lead by example. While being mindful of all victims and sensitive to their pain, I can only wonder if the offender is striving to follow a path of making society a better place, if that offender is focused on trying to divert young men and women away from a downward spiral and to educate with our life experiences and attempting to show them real life stories and pray that our horrible choices, our horrific actions, the devastation we have caused decades ago, that today, by learning what made us tick, today our youth will not make the same choices. If our voices today can avoid one more life from being lost, isn't it vital for all of us on both sides of the fence to come together? By doing so, perhaps that life we save will be someone you know, or maybe even the loved one. I can't begin to speak for any victim, but if I could, I seriously doubt that they would turn their back on saving a life, even if it meant teaming up with those of us behind bars. Are any of us here today the same person we were 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago? Isn't it better to strive to protect others from making similar bad choices? Every picture tells a story. Now you know mine. Worst of the worst, you be the judge. To all my friends who were unable to attend, what you have just heard was originally conceived as a TEDx talk. On June 21st, 2015, I gave this talk on the TEDx stage live. I agree that it would be detrimental to a victim of a crime to be surfing around the web and to see the face of the person who caused them so much pain. However, that face exists in many places already, even the DRC's website. There are probably newspaper articles online and legal sites that carry inaccurate stories of the crime. Not to mention, most people have an online presence, even if it is only on the pages of family and friends. So how do we balance the right of the victim to forget, if that is even possible, with an offender's need to have their voice heard? We all have a story to tell. Wouldn't it do a victim some good to know that an offender has taken the opportunity to better themselves and are not the same person who hurt them? How can that happen if we are silenced? As I outlined in my talk, the system is only interested in revenge. If that is to change, all of us need to engage in a dialogue. And for that dialogue to have any meaning, the truth has to be the start. Our truth, your truth, everyone's truth. That is only possible if we have a voice. Then change can happen. I have been told by several friends that they have shown skeptics videos of offenders telling their stories. The skeptics rarely make it through the video without tears streaming down their cheeks. Truth has impact. Why not embrace it? The TEDx platform has provided me with an opportunity that few others have ever had. Prisoners have to be able to tell their stories. Their loved ones have to be able to tell their stories, and then maybe society can begin to stop confusing justice with revenge. If you feel that your voice as a stakeholder and as a public is not being represented by the Parole Board, I urge you to contact the state representatives, ask questions, open dialogue with them, and be a part of an effort to save lives. Over 7,000 men and women in Ohio prisons are counting on you. And remember, we come in peace. Thank you.